Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for Confirm It's Ideas Factory. Very excited to spend a little bit of time with you and, of course, spend a little bit of time with my colleague, Rudy Nadillo. So Rudy, just as some background for those who might not know, which you should by now, but if you don't, Confirm It merged with Dapper C. What do you say, Rudy? It's been about a year now? We're coming up on a year.
In February 2020, correct.
Pretty awesome stuff. So the coolness of Dapper C, in my opinion, is that Dapper C brought the power of storytelling and visualization to Confirm It. So obviously we had a fantastic product before, again, slightly biased, but it brought in the visualizations and the storytelling. Now, I think we can all agree that this is a super important topic, being able to tell stories with your data, visualize your data, etc. It's something that everybody's talking about at all times. Matter of fact, I just got a thing from Quirks this week that was saying that this is the #1 consideration on everybody's mind. So I thought, who better to talk to than somebody who has spent a good chunk of their career working in the world of visualization and storytelling. And Rudy was with Dapper C long before Confirm It came into the mix. And of course, Dapper C are the experts in data visualization. So Rudy, thank you for joining us today. I am very excited about spending a little bit of time talking with the experts on the visualization concept. It's just so important. But one of the things that I think, and I think a lot of people might agree, is that we tend to hear the words storytelling and visualization an awful lot. And it becomes something of a buzzword that everybody wants to throw out. And it may or may not actually be visualization or storytelling, or people just don't understand what it is. So before we jump into actually talking about, some of the deep dive, I want to kind of level set for a minute. And can you tell us what is storytelling and how does visualization help to push that story, to create that story?
Holly, great question. By the way, my wife's name is Holly. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not. She's a great person, obviously.
No, that's a great question. And, I'll make you laugh. There are clients who bring us boring charts and tables, and their idea of visualization is adding a little stick figure icon next to the chart because it's talking about demographics. And, oh my God, that's great. I have a stick figure of a male and a female, or I have a picture of a family. In many levels for basic PowerPoint reporting, sometimes that's all that's needed, right? You don't want to get hung up. But your core question is really at the heart of this whole session we're doing here, and that is infographic storytelling. And you're right, storytelling is just not a buzzword which came up at conferences 5-10 years ago and right. What's the next? It just continues to be. So the way I like to think about it is storytelling allows you to get at cause and effect, okay? And the way it does that, it allows you to present the data in a logical format. So imagine you're going to an airport. Well, I just actually booked travel to my daughter down in Key West. So I got on the phone, I talked to I'm old fashioned, I didn't do it online. I got on the phone, I spoke to the folks at Delta, and then I'm going to proceed to the airport, in a month or so. And then I'm going to get on the plane and I'll have an experience there. And as I get off the plane, I'm going to be greeted by whoever and get my bags and then make my way to my daughter's house. I don't mean to be mundane, but that is my path to purchase, right?
Right.
So when you think about storytelling, imagine a bar chart that had vertical bars and it talked about, the experience of making the reservation, what was my experience at the airport, et cetera, through those points. Pretty boring. You just have bars up and down with numbers. And so Dapper C, what's unique about Dapper C, and it's truly unique in the marketplace, is we have what's called free-form placement of data. So we have many of these path to purchase, customer journey is another word people use, that allow you to visually represent and take somebody through the logical steps of how that particular experience happened. We have a client that's been using us for years that works with the NFL, and we have the prototypical football stadium. And it's the same thing. How was it when you parked the car? What was it like when you entered the stadium? You know, how were the restrooms? What was the concession stand like? You know, what was your seat like? Did the person greet you well when you brought you to your seat? And so on and so forth. These are just classic, any kind of customer retail like experience really lend themselves to that. Okay. And then the second piece is the visualization, right? So what does the visualization do? That's nothing more than making the data relatable and interesting. Okay. So go back to my airport example. Instead of having boring vertical graphs, now all of a sudden I have maybe a picture of somebody on a telephone, and that clearly telegraphs that at that initial stage of the journey, that's my way of making the call. Or I could have a dual path, or I could have, you know, me on the phone and you, Holly, in front of a computer, because those are two ways that we're going to get into making this reservation. And you have the appropriate visuals at the appropriate points in that path to purchase. And when you put that all together and you just step back and take time, that is truly what storytelling does to bring data alive. And if you do this well, you're going to find, and we're working with some clients literally right now, who are struggling with trying to get information to the C-level. And they're saying things like, well, geez, my CMO or my head of sales is never going to log into a dashboard. I got to send them their PowerPoint deck. And what I challenge these people with is I say, look, if we can make these in a compelling way, just the way I described, you'll be surprised that these people are going to want to potentially, not all of them, right? You're still going to have people who want their piece of paper, but more and more, you're going to get people who are going to log in. And then when they're into that environment, literally one page, they have filters. So if you're the CEO of a company or the CMO of a company, you might want to just be able to change the data by region. So maybe the company has 8-10 regions, and you might want to change it by product line. They got 3
So it
product
gets them
lines.
to actually engage with it's interesting enough to catch their attention, but then kind of drives them to the place where they can actually engage with the data.
Exactly.
Which I guess helps them to take it to heart, which it kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask why, if I was on the fence about this, which of course I'm not, again, we have to know there's an inherent bias. I'm sitting here as Holly representing Confirm It.
Sure.
But, if I was on the fence, what would you tell me? Why is this so important? And I think you kind of just spoke to that. It's making it visual. I mean, you've got visual learners out there, people who, you subtract out the pictures, the visualizations, and there are some people who just don't get it. Numbers are not everybody's forte. But you can also further the story with the imagery, and you can make it more understandable, more engaging, and make people want to get in and play with it, which I think is an incredibly powerful opportunity.
Right. And there are multiple levels as to why this is important. Some are selfish, some are, business related. So let's go to that dashboard we just built and my example of there's regions, and let's keep it simple. Product lines. Well, when you go to this CMO and you show her, hey, here's this thing that I know you don't want to use. I know you want your PowerPoint, okay? But please just bear with me. Let me show you this thing. Well, their mental set coming into this is what we call the old-fashioned widget-based reporting.
Yeah.
Okay? Box, 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 box. It's just tons of data. You're overwhelmed. It looks cool, right? And it might look cool, but when you start to use it, you realize it's just a pain in the neck. Okay?
Right.
So now you go and you show her and you say, hey, you're calling me weekly, monthly, daily, whatever, to get some information that you can go click, update, and get right at your hands. Because the other piece to storytelling is being able to put the right data in the hands of the right person at the right time in a relevant way. So for that CMO, she might only want to look at region and product line. But for the salesperson, they might have a different configuration of that particular path. And they want to look at price point, they want to look at product line and price point and region and salesperson, right? So you open that up to them. And as you start to design these things and people realize, wow, this is something that really is meaningful for me, it's great. And on the selfish side, I would tell my researcher friends who are listening, now all of a sudden, your phone isn't ringing for these mundane requests, and you're able to provide more added value and focus on insights as opposed to being an order taker and just sending somebody a chart or a table in an email.
And I think that opens up an important sort of follow-up question that you kind of touched on. Yes, I think researchers are probably leaning in right now going, really? They'll stop calling me?
Right.
And I'm sure that applies to customer experience and employee engagement researchers.
We have that documented.
Everybody.
That is common feedback.
But more than that, what else? What about the rest of the process? Let's talk about process efficiency for a second. We know that anybody who's dabbling in insights or research in any way, I don't care, what area of business you're in, market research, customer experience, customer info, it doesn't matter. Whoever you are, we know you're strapped for time. So let's talk for a second about process efficiency. And I know that Dapperseed brings some stuff to the table. And this is, as we've merged together with Dapperseed, we've been able to offer more and more of these measures of efficiency to our customers. But I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what makes it efficient. Where else can researchers, insights pros, whatever you want to call them, what makes it better for them?
Another very good question. And there's a context that people need to understand. When you talk about this great reporting and these capabilities, and in the past, frankly, when we were first launching Dapperseed in North America, we focused in so much on infographics and storytelling. Believe it or not, some people thought we were a graphics design company. Okay, so we went a little too far to one extreme, but at least it planted the seed and people knew that what it was. But you have to think of it this way. The ability to do those cool dashboards and storytelling and infographics starts with the ability to be able to take in and consume this data. Okay, so think about, we've just done a survey in Horizons and we've closed field and we now have an SPSS file. And the normal process that most researchers go through, and I deal with this day in and day out, and I hear this all the time. I actually was on the phone with the COO of a major Midwestern company, and this guy said it on his own. He says, oh, we closed field, and then we got to run cross tables. We got to take those cross tables and put them into Excel and do whatever manipulation we do there. And then from Excel, we have to manually bring that into PowerPoint, and it's very manual and tedious. It's error prone. And then, of course, all the rework associated with that, okay? We were talking about you and my wife being called Holly, and there are some Hollies who don't use a Y, but they use an I, okay? So imagine you put together a PowerPoint deck, because we also automate deck building, not just dashboarding. And all of a sudden, somebody comes along and says, and that's an attribute, right? That's a data point in a deck. And somebody says, oh, you spelled this wrong. You spelled Holly with an I, not Holly with a Y. Well, that's rework. And rework is a royal pain in the neck, and it's incredibly time consuming. Some poor analyst has to get a pizza, sit up one night in the conference room and go chart by chart, table by table to change Holly with an I to Holly with a Y. And oftentimes they might have to rerun the cross tables. So they have to get IT to get them that data before they do that. In Dapperseed, all of that is sitting in this engine that allows you to on the fly do the data manipulation, and changing Holly with an I to a Y takes 1 nanosecond. But what about weighting? Weightings change because the client doesn't like it. Nets change, colors change. There's all sorts of things that always are being changed, and you just get away from this manual process of those change. So let's jump to a dashboard that we were talking about before. Let's take that airport example, and somebody's having this tracker that's being updated once a month. Well, in the world of trackers, you know, you close that file that we get out of our Horizon update survey, and that SPSS file, you have to go in and clean the metadata. I mean, that in and of itself, I've had clients tell me, can take up to a week. It's very manual and tedious. Well, in the Daprsy system, you make a data map of that cleaned metadata file, and then when the next upload of data comes in, that map just automatically applies to that data and does that metadata, like, again, within seconds. So
Right.
there is a huge time saving. And then you go through all those other things I mentioned that you have. So you can now spend time not on the mundane, tedious stuff, but now you can spend time on your storytelling and your data visualization. So you are now adding, I'm sorry, you're focusing your attention on added value and more important tasks, as opposed to being bogged down in these mundane tasks. And the same thing holds true with even we have three legs of the stool in Daprsy: cross tables, PowerPoint production, and dashboard production. Even for your cross tables, as boring as, you know, it's the most basic component that we produce in reporting, you know, even generating a cross table, right? That data just flows right into the cross table tool. Currently, if a analyst in an average research firm wants to get new data tables, they got to pick up the phone, type an email, send it off to their data management people, or oftentimes an outside vendor. They've got to wait a couple hours or a day to get those crosstabs redone. We put that crosstab capability right in the fingers of the analyst, and they can do it, and they can go in and add their data, their weights and nets and changes in the stuff they do. So it's a holistic, systemic approach that allows you to manage, manipulate, massage the data, clean the data, all the way through to reporting. And when you're done, and I'm sorry to go on and on here, but when you're done with that dashboard, that's completely finished, and you've published this to somebody, and you realize I've got Holly with an I and not a Y, it's a push of a button to instantly publish it out and change it. Or the data is weighted wrong. It's a push of a button to change the weighting,
Right.
and on and on. So
So there's a ton of
it's truly a
efficiency there.
remarkable system.
Yeah, yeah, there is it seems like there's a ton of efficiency, potential efficiency gains there. So now, as far as the data goes, because obviously, you know, the getting data is the heart and soul of being able to use a visualization tool
Absolutely.
of any sort.
Yes.
So we've got to have data. Obviously, you know, you guessed it, Confirm It and Daprsy, we talk. But that doesn't really end the potential for data. There's a lot of other potential data sources that can come in and be used to help build that story. So I'm wondering, you know, where does, at a high level, I don't want to go into every single integration and so on and so
Sure.
forth, that would just be terrible, but at a high level, what can we expect in terms of where the data could come from? What can people think to include, or, you know, to start to build that visualized story?
Yeah. Another great question, Holly. And the high level answer is simply this: researchers are looking to add context behind their reports. Okay. So take a meeting where somebody's presenting customer sat, and you have, over the last 8 quarters, customer sat is dropping. Okay. And it's being presented. And the you know, our CMO that we were talking about earlier, she says, well, why is that dropping? Well, you have everybody in the peanut gallery behind you in the meeting. You know, the ed guy is saying the GRPs have dropped, and the person who tracks social media is saying, well, geez, we've had a lot of negative mentions since the product problem we had, you know, 8-10 quarters ago, whatever it might be. Well, you can take that advertising data, you can take that social media data, you can take sales data, all this other data, bring it into the system, and it seamlessly commingles, and you can now have that graph of customer sat going down, and right along with it, you can show how GRP spending has gone down and how negative mentions of social media has gone up. Now you have a different view of the world. Oh, I can see why that's happening. What are we doing about it? As opposed to taking, time to have different people have to chime in on something. I mean, that's a silly example, but it's something everybody can relate to, where you
Yeah,
can put that
absolutely.
data together.
Yeah, so
So,
there's a lot of different
we have
potentials for data
insurance,
sources.
companies that, they put in outstanding claims, average value of a claim, easily put that data right alongside your survey data, whatever it might be.
That's fantastic. So I have another question, because this is the key in my mind, and I'm sure different people have different opinions. But before I ask the question, I want to show a couple of examples of
Sure.
what this visualization thing means. So I'm going to just share my screen with everybody, and I just want to pull up, like I said, a couple of little examples here. Sorry if you're seeing a brief pause of the other screen, but I need to look at two at the same time. We have these sort of dashboard examples. I will disclaim with everyone that these are all static images. These are screenshots, but I'm looking through these and I pull them up on my screen, and this is a story told.
Yes.
This is a visualization. I personally think it's fun, it's engaging, it's exciting. I'll show you another one just so we can, again, kind of just set the groundwork. We don't have to memorize any of these. Here is another story told. At a glance, you start to understand quite a bit about, this is specifically telling me about locations, and there's different views and
And you
great
can
stuff
drill into
here.
those countries. So you drill into the country and you get more
Perfect.
data on that. Right.
This is a restaurant example. How much more awesome does it get than this? This does legitimately make me want to play with the data. Because it's cool, it's fun, it's engaging, it's exciting, and if I can, you can see at the top there's things that I can do here, filters. If I can drill into the data, so just to kind of set the tone. What I think when I see this, however, and here's where the question starts to pop up, is I can't draw a stick figure. I can't do this. And I have no doubt that there's a million people on the call, watching this video after the fact, however they're joining us today, whether it's live or watching later, who are going, yeah, this is fantastic, but Rudy,
how the heck do
how
I
hard
do
is
that?
this?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
how hard is this really?
Okay, another really good question. So, a couple of answers to that. Number one, don't forget your current process. Most people are using PowerPoint. It is more common than not these days that market research agencies and other research enterprise departments have access to graphics capabilities. Okay, so they have people who, after a typical process on some of these bigger research firms, is the analysts put those decks together with the charts and tables, and then they send it off to some people who add in some visual elements, or vice versa. They give them the visual elements, they add them in. So that's one way to get graphics, right? You have corporate graphics, you're dealing with a particular brand. Pick on Lego. I mean, Lego has all sorts of cool, graphics you can use, and you can bring those in. And to the extent that the analyst is comfortable doing it themselves, they can, or they do it the way they're currently doing it. Now, buried in the DAPRC system is thousands of icons and shapes and maps and states and regions and provinces and all that stuff you would expect. They're your classic icons and shapes, right? So you could have the icon of a car, you could have some kind of generic family images, things like that, or you can have images that would be, let's say, you want to do a funnel, and you can bring in a shape of a funnel, and then you can layer data on top of that funnel, so you see things, how things cascade down. So a lot of that is built in, but truth be told, if it's something very proprietary, well, you do it the way you currently do it. Get a graphic artist in your company to build that. So it really depends. I would tell you that the average research agency is very happy to have just the ability to add in a lot of these images that are already in the library. The other thing, of course, is if it's a very complex, very widely distributed dashboard that it's the backbone for some companies that they do, we also supply graphics capabilities and will help with clients to really design out that path to purchase and what's the best way to show this. And then they can drop the data right on top of that themselves, or we do it for them.
Okay. So this is not even for somebody like me, it doesn't sound like this is an impossible feat, which is good to know. I like the idea of being able to pick from a library and use pre-made visualizations and so on and so forth. That's huge. And you're right. A lot are going to have access to some graphic design people who can make it even easier for them. But for those that don't, the dropping in pre-existing images does make it a lot less scary.
And oftentimes, this is important, oftentimes people think the imagery is nothing more than bringing in their PowerPoint template, and we can easily import a PowerPoint template to our PowerPoint production tool, and the existing, different ways they represent things. And for a lot of your day-to-day, routine ad hoc reporting, that's good enough. So there's, you have the high-end infographics, obviously, which is really cool, but you really have to service the day-to-day stuff as well.
Yeah. So we just actually got a question from the audience, an unidentified LinkedIn user. Hello to you, unidentified LinkedIn user, who has asked if you would categorize this as customization or customizable or configurable. So I guess he or she is referring to Dapper-C. Is it customizable or configurable?
That is a great question. You do not need to be a programmer to use Dapper-C. So my answer is it's configurable. You're pulling pre-existing things and using things that you go in and pull together, okay? You're not there programming and writing scripts and stuff like that. It's designed for the person who's building the PowerPoint deck or building that tracker dashboard. It's designed for that person to use, not a third party who's a programmer somewhere.
Excellent. So Mr. or Mrs. LinkedIn user, I hope that answers your question. Thank you for joining us today. So, once the visualization's all said and done, you've kind of exposed this throughout, but I just wanted to highlight as well is that there are options for delivery, including, the options that allow you to have this sort of dynamic updates. If somebody's looking at a dashboard, the data comes in, it's going to continue updating based on new data. But you also could do something a little bit more static in terms of the PowerPoint outputs. And I wanted to talk just a second about the PowerPoint, because what I've seen, at least, and just for those who are wondering, we are on our last question, but I thought this is an important topic because what I've seen, especially in the world of market research, is that PowerPoints are still pretty important to their flow. So I wanted to spend just a second talking about, and you did intimate before, but I wanted to spend just a second of time talking about the PowerPoint outputs. And obviously this is an option still. How much effort is involved? Is this a good option? Why?
The last year and a half, we have been introducing and working on a new PowerPoint production tool. It's called Story Creator. And it's an adjunct to the dashboard tool, which we call Storyteller. But the PowerPoint production tool is, I have to say, and I'm going to brag here for a second, it's quite amazing. This is something that literally you can close field, data will flow into this tool. You can go run crosstabs, do charts, tables in a interface that is almost akin to building in PowerPoint. It gives you all of that data manipulation capability, all of the Dapper-C hundreds and hundreds of formulas that we use to create nets and all that stuff. And it exports out into native PowerPoint format. So when you get it, you can then double click on those images and you actually, on the charts, and you actually can go see the data underneath, which is for some research agencies very important. just an amazing tool and takes about 15 minutes to learn.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we are running up against time. We usually do about 30 minutes. We're at 11:32, so we're a couple minutes over. We did get one last question that I do want to address through LinkedIn. If I'm mispronouncing, I'm sorry. I believe it's Pandian. Thank you for joining us, Pandian. I appreciate you being with us today. And he or she, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who you are, but Pandian would like to know, how good are our text analytics capabilities? So obviously we were talking about visualizations today, but yes, Confirm It does have a built-in text analytics. And again, I will clarify with the fact that I'm insanely biased because I do work with Confirm It and have been here for a long time. But our text analytics capabilities are pretty powerful. I think they're absolutely fantastic. So there's built-in AI that helps you to understand what's being said in the text. You have complete control. These are some of the highlights I think are pretty important in terms of text analytics. You have control over your models, and the model kind of helps you to categorize where the text goes. So somebody puts text in, how is that going to be assigned or lined up or mapped to something that means something to your business? So you have control over those models. Now, at the same time, of course, we have pre-designed models that can help you to get started, but they're configurable as well, so you can tweak and twist, but you have control over that. The AI is going to help you to understand what's being said, understand the sentiment behind it. It's a really, truly powerful tool. One of my favorite parts about it is what we call Concept Miner. And Concept Miner is the bit of the tool that helps you to discover new and emerging trends. So, you know, when you create your categorization model and you're assuming you're going to be finding specific things, right? But you never know when something new and scary is going to pop up that you need to be on top of. Concept Miner is a smartness behind the technology. It is part of that machine learning AI stuff, which again is a little over my head, but it's cool. It helps you. It looks over the stuff that people are saying, and even if there isn't a category that it can put it into, even if it's not something that you've ever thought of before, it's going to bubble up and go, hey, pay attention. There's an issue here. There's something going on that you need to look at. And I think for any business, that's pretty powerful. It not only helps you to make sure you're continuously building and improving on the model, but it also highlights things that we hope won't be surprising you and catching you off guard. So I hope I answered your question, at least at a high level, in that 2 minutes that I wanted to put in to make sure you were answered. Feel free to reach out to us, though. I can follow up with you directly through LinkedIn, or we can get you in touch with people who are super duper smart, much smarter than me, and can talk to you about all the fancy AI stuff and how it works and why it's great. Happy to answer your questions. And again, I can reach out to you through LinkedIn, or you can absolutely check us out at confirmit.com or call us anytime. So with that, thank you everybody for joining. Rudy, this was fantastic. I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you're super busy. Everybody is. But I do appreciate, I think we covered a lot of cool topics here. And I hope that everybody's enjoyed today's live stream, and we will see you in 2 weeks. So for now, goodbye everybody, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you. Bye.